Hello, I'm Dana Bash in for Jake Tapper here in Washington, where the State of our Union is counting down to a new year. And the way things are looking, hundreds of thousands of government workers across the country may find it hard to pop the champagne, not knowing when their next paycheck is coming. As President Trump digs in over his fight for funding a border wall, spending his holiday writing angry tweets and taking his battle with the Democrats to a dark place, tweeting, "Any deaths of children or others at the border are strictly the fault of the Democrats and their pathetic immigration policies that allow people to make the long trek thinking they can enter our country illegally." The tweet coming days after an 8-year-old migrant died in U.S. custody on Christmas Eve. Joining me now, Counselor to the President, Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, thank you so much for joining me this morning. That was President Trump's first comment on the deaths of those 2 children at the border, explicitly saying Democratic lawmakers are culpable in those children dying. Is that something you want to defend this morning?
Dana, the president's press secretary and incoming acting chief of staff had already weighed in publicly about these tragic deaths, and it is a tragedy. I've discussed them directly with the president, and I requested and received a briefing from CPB about both Jacqueline and Felipe's deaths. Any death of a child, any death of anyone is an utter tragedy. I think the president's point is an important one, which is that he's stayed in Washington to negotiate border security and to get funding for DHS and ICE and CPB, and of course enhanced border security, which Democrats, until he took over as president, were all in favor of. And we are allowing these people to take their children on a perilous journey without correcting the falsities. They're being promised something that people can simply not deliver upon.
Kellyanne, I want to talk about
people to subject these children to these perilous journeys.
I want to talk about that policy in a minute. But the idea is that the president's aides, now you're one of them, have said that they have empathy for the deaths of children who are coming across the border with their parents. But the president hasn't. The only thing he has said is something that is very political and, frankly, misleading with regard to Democrats being culpable for the deaths of children.
Dana, the president would like the Democrats to be in 2019 who they've been in 2006 with the Secure Fences Act. Earlier this summer, in fact, dozens of Democrats voted for DHS funding. In a certain committee, 10 Democrats voted to approve enhanced border security funding. Where are they now? And what the point he's making is that our DHS and CPB, Customs and Border Patrol statistics, show that unlike in the past, where the vast majority of those coming over the border illegally were single males and were coming from Mexico, they're coming from the Northern Triangle countries now, and they're coming as families, or they're coming as unaccompanied minors, as you know, unaccompanied children. We simply cannot absorb all that, and unfortunately, and very tragically, it does result in some death. Now, in Felipe's case, his father and he came into El Paso, I'm told, one of the busiest ports of entry. They were being held while their claims were being processed. He took ill. He was taken to the hospital twice. And unfortunately, he is now deceased. In the case of Jacqueline, they were very far from a port of entry. 163 people needed to be put on a bus that.
And I just want to say that according to your government,
that accommodate 50. No. I went and got a briefing because I'm concerned about this.
Mm-hmm. And that's important. It's also important to note that the president tweeted not just that Democrats are responsible, but that they were ill before they were coming over. And his own government, the CPB, has said in several statements that they've tracked them and that that's not the case. I want to move on, Kellyanne, to where we are right now.
Well, but I don't want to move on from children's death and what the president's saying, because I think this is very important.
Okay.
I don't like some of the Democrats using these deaths as political pawns.
But isn't that exactly what the president just did?
No, the president is not doing that. The president does not want these children to come on the perilous journey to begin with. They are paying. Now, some of them are paying the ultimate price, but many of them, all of them, are paying these coyotes who don't give a whit about human life.
But this is not a new policy. This is a policy that has been in place with Democrats in charge of the White House, with Democrats in charge of Congress, and Republicans in charge of both the White House and Congress. The courts have screwed this up, and the Congress has failed to close loopholes that make people believe they should come here as a family unit. We simply are trying to absorb
the new illegal immigration, which are larger, higher numbers of family units and unaccompanied minors. You know the statistics, you've seen them. And I do want to say that those Democrats who in the past voted for the Secure Fences Act of 2006, if they want to call it the Secure Fences Act of 2019, call it whatever you want, because the House, they did their job. They passed over $5.6 billion in funding that is not just for a wall, it's for technology.
Kellyanne, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the solution, if there is any solution. We are 9 days in to a shutdown. I want to ask you about something that John Kelly, the outgoing chief of staff for the White House, just said in an interview. He said, to be honest, it's not a wall. The president still says wall. Oftentimes, frankly, he'll say barrier or fencing. Now he's tended towards steel slats. But we left a solid concrete wall early on in the administration. First, is he right that it's not a wall anymore?
Well, I think many people who don't want to fess up to border security and get Congress to do its job and close the loopholes insist that it's a wall, a wall, a wall. The president has said, he said last week, and he tweeted out pictures of steel slats. Things are already happening in California in terms of that. It's been a priority for CPB since 2009, I'm informed. And because of this president's leadership, it's finally getting done. I saw a Democratic congressman on your network. Clips were played earlier today. I guess the interview was recent, Dana, where he said, hey, but we need technology. We need enhancements. We need, okay, let's do that. People say we want something to we need to look through.
So we don't need a wall?
So the wall
is John Kelly right that an actual wall, which we heard, you know, umpteen times on the campaign trail, that is no longer the case?
No, the president, it really depends on what Customs and Border Patrol says they need. And they have said they need barriers. They need, the president says a wall, barriers. They need steel slats. They need technology enhancements. But those who have completely walked away from the table are doing no justice to the people of this country. We have 31 sanctuary cities now. We have 6 sanctuary states. So many of them would make us a sanctuary country.
The government has been shut down for 9 days.
They failed to pass
a wall.
No.
It has been shut down over a wall.
That is incorrect. That is completely false.
The president said it in the Oval Office. He said very clearly,
it is shut down because of border security. No. The House later passed $5.6 billion for border security. They didn't pass it for a wall. That is not restricted to just wall building.
And to the senators,
I talked to leadership last night. It's for any number of things.
And to the senators in the Republican and Democratic Party who say they did pass a bill in December before leaving that they thought the president was going to sign that didn't necessarily have money for a border wall, but had $1.3 billion for more border security. You're telling those Republicans in the Senate that that wasn't enough?
Well, I noticed that Senator Marco Rubio of Florida said after the House passed its package, this was reasonable. And his comment was he hopes Democrats will come forward because they voted for $800 billion or so in a stimulus package in the last administration. They could vote for $5 billion for border security. That's a very important point. And the president could stand firm on the $5.6 billion and ask the Senate, you know, why is this not a modest investment in our nation's security? Border security is national security, and it is naive and partisan for anybody to suggest that we don't have a drug crisis at our border.
Is it the border?
It's anything. It's all of the above.
Because this is, I'm sure you're hearing this. Republicans and Democrats are frustrated because they say the goalpost keeps changing.
No, where are they? The president has said. The president tweeted yesterday. Where are they? He wants to make a deal on border security. Where are they? Nancy Pelosi's in Hawaii. She's got to come back.
They argue they haven't heard from the president in 19 days.
To fund the government, to reopen the government.
They haven't gotten a phone call from the president in 19 days. Waiting to hear from the president.
That's not fair. They know where he is. They know where he is. He's exactly where he's been the entire time, working in Washington, D.C., in the White House. He tweeted out yesterday,
wants to get this wall, then you invite people to the White House and you sit down and you do the art of the deal. That's not happening.
He wants all types of border security. The House passed its package. It went to the Senate. It was tendered to the Senate, and the Senate did not counteroffer. Dana, why aren't they countering offer with something that means something to them? We haven't heard from them. It's complete crickets. For partisan political reasons, well, just 2 days ago, we saw writ large the president's entire point, we have Officer Singh in California, murdered in cold blood after taking a Christmas picture with his 5-month-old son, who will never know his father now, murdered by a criminal alien who shouldn't have been here. This is the president's entire point. The Democrats have voted against Kate's law. They voted against removing criminal aliens. They voted against sanctuary cities law. They're voting against, they're not coming to the table for border security. The Democrats in 2018 helped put on the president's desk 2 major bipartisan packages: opioid legislation and criminal justice reform. Border security is a nonpartisan issue. Let's have a bipartisan solution.
One of the things that the Democrats say that they will do when they take over the House on Thursday is pass a bill to reopen the government, which may end up on the president's desk.
All of the government? Including the Department of Homeland Security?
Yes, that will fund the Department of Homeland Security, not the border wall. If the president gets that on his desk, will he veto it?
It depends what's in it. What is it going to say? In other words, they're not even discussing it over the Christmas and New Year's breakdown of what could possibly be in that package.
If he got something that the Senate already passed, would he veto it or not?
It depends what's in it. The president likes the $5.6 billion that was in the House package. His incoming acting chief of staff and his vice president have offered less than that as a compromise. We've heard nothing in return. A negotiation, by definition, has to include both sides. He's in the White House. He's in Washington, ready to negotiate. This is important in border security and keeping the government open. But if you keep saying wall, wall, wall because you want wall to be a 4-letter word, and we're not being honest about everything CPB has asked with respect to border security.
The president is the one who explicitly said in the Oval Office, it's the wall. And it's the reason why.
And he said in a tweet yesterday, you can't cherry pick his tweets. He talked about border security just yesterday. He mentioned it to me yesterday in a phone call. I'm here ready to make a deal, negotiate on border security. He's ready, but they need to come to the table. This is not a negotiation.
We look forward to seeing that negotiation start back up when they come back.
When Speaker Pelosi comes in, she's got a weakened hand. There are 33 Democrats coming in.
How does she have a weakened hand? She now has control of the House.
That won in Trump districts because. Right, but she's got a smaller margin than the Republicans had when they were there,
and they had
difficult
2
to get
years
everybody in
with
agreement
complete
on everything.
Control of Congress, and they didn't give the president this border wall.
By the way, put me down as totally agreeing with you. I think the courts and Congress have failed to do their jobs. There's no question. Democrats and Republicans have promised border security. They have voted for it in the past. I like Chuck Schumer circa 2009 talking about how border security has helped stem the flow of illegal immigration versus Chuck Schumer 10 years later, who won't even deal with us on this. And by the way, CPB told me yesterday 4,000 people were rescued by them last year. We need those stories as well. It's a tragedy that these migrant children have died. We need the uplifting stories of 4,000 or so, 4,300 actually. CPB tells me they helped to rescue.
CPB and the Border Patrol, the individuals are doing ICE are doing yeoman's work. Thank you so much, Kellyanne Conway, for joining me this morning.
Thank you, Dana. Happy New Year.
You too.